Danielle Jones. My pronouns are she, her, and hers, and I'm a youth librarian at Multnomah County Library's Capitol Hill branch. Today, I'm going to be sharing with you the first part of Internment by Samira Ahmed, published by Little Brown and Company. This is a dystopian novel that poses the question, what if? What if a government very similar to the 2019 US government decided to round up Muslim Americans into internment camps in a very similar way that the US government did in the 1940s to Japanese American citizens? This is a book by a Muslim author, and though I am not Muslim, I recognize my privilege and that this is a book that gave me a better understanding of the very real threats that Muslims face around the world every day, and how important it is that we stand up for each other and make sure that no one's civil liberties are ever put into jeopardy. All right, now let's get started. I strain to listen for boots on the pavement, stomping, marching. But there's nothing, only the familiar chirp of crickets and the occasional fading rumble of a car in the distance, and a rustle so faint I can't tell if it's the wind or the anxious huff of my breath. But everywhere it's the same as it's always been, the perfectly manicured lawn of Center Square, the gazebo's twinkling fairy lights, the yellow beams from the porch lamps at every door. In the distance, I see a funnel of smoke rising into the air. Most of the town is at the book burning, so I should be safe, or at least safer. I don't measure time by the old calendar anymore. I don't look at the date. There is only then and now. There is only what we once were and what we have become. 2.5 years since the election. 2 years since the Nazis marched on DC. 18 months since the Muslim ban. 1 year since our answers on the census landed us on the registry. 9 months since the first book burning. 6 months since the exclusion laws were enacted. 5 months since the Attorney General argued that Korematsu versus United States established precedent for relocation of citizens during times of war. 3 months since they started firing Muslims from public sector jobs. 2 months since the virulent Islamophobe was sworn in as Secretary of War, a cabinet position that hasn't existed since World War II. 1 month since the President of the United States gave a televised speech to Congress declaring that Muslims are a threat to America. I thought our little liberal college town would fight it longer, hold out. Some did, but you'd be surprised at how quickly armed military personnel and pepper spray shut down the well-meaning protests of liberals in small, leafy towns. They're still happening. The protests turn riots, even though the mainstream media won't cover them. The resistance is alive, some say, but not in my town, and not on the nightly news. Curfew starts in 30 minutes, and this is a stupid risk. My parents will absolutely freak out if they find that I'm not in my room reading, but I need to see David. I force myself to walk calmly, head forward, like I have nothing to hide, even though every muscle in my body shrieks at me to run, to turn back. Technically, I'm not doing anything wrong, not yet. But if the police stop me, well, let's just say they have an uncanny ability to make technicalities disappear. Breathe, slow down. If I rush from shadow to shadow, I will attract attention, especially from the new motion-sensitive security cameras mounted to the street lamps. Curfew hasn't started yet, and I'm allowed outside right now, but it's already dark. Even here, where almost everyone knows me and my parents, maybe because of that fact, my heart races each time I step out of the house. I cross at the light, waiting for the walk signal, even though there are no cars. I spy a flyer on for the burning taped around the lamppost on the corner. Join your neighbors. The words are superimposed on a cascade of banned books, dangerous books. A hard knot forms in my stomach, but I keep walking, eyes still on the poster, and bump headlong into a woman rushing in the opposite direction. She stumbles and drops her bag. Books and flyers fall to the ground. I bend down to help her pick her things up. Sorry, I wasn't looking where I was going. I try to be polite, deferential. Stay calm, I say to myself. It's not past curfew yet. Don't act guilty. You're not guilty of anything. But these days, actual guilt is an afterthought. The woman keeps her head turned away from me, refusing to meet my gaze. Shoveling the books and papers back into her bag, I reach for the two books and glance at the titles before she grabs them from my fingers. Palace Walk by Naguib Mahfouz and Nameless Saints by Ali Amin, my father. For a split second, she looks me in the eye. I suck in my breath. Mrs. Brown, I'm sorry. My face fades away. Mrs. Brown's own Mrs. Brown owns the sweet spot on Jefferson Street. She made my favorite birthday cake ever, a green frosted Tinkerbell confection for my 5th birthday. She narrows her eyes at me, opens her mouth to speak, and then clamps it shut. She looks down and pushes past me. She won't even say my name. Her flyer for the book burning somersaults away in the breeze. I shrink into myself. I'm afraid all the time now, afraid of being reported by strangers, of people I know, of being stopped by police and asked questions to which there are no answers. I pick up the pace, cross the town square, staring straight ahead, wiping the fear off my face, fighting the tears that edge into the corners of my eyes. I can't suffer looking at the university's gleaming glass administration building, all clean lines and razor sharp edges that cut to the bone. David's mother teaches chemistry at the university. My dad teaches poetry and writing, or did teach, I should say, until he was fired, mysteriously deemed unqualified for the tenured professorship he had worked for over a decade. That's another before. 2 months since my dad lost his job. My mind lingers on Mrs. Brown. She knows me. She's seen me, and in minutes I'll be in violation of curfew. I'm obviously not going to the burning. I should be home. The hard knot in my stomach grows. I remember a lesson from my psychology class about an experiment in which volunteers were asked to torture people who were in another room by pressing a button that supposedly delivered an electric shock. It didn't really, but the volunteers didn't know that. All they heard were the screams. Some resisted at first, but most of them pressed the button eventually, even when the screams got louder. Again, this is Internment, the beginning of Internment. And remember, this book is available through Multnomah County Library in print, ebook, and audiobook. You can access it through our ebook and audiobook app called Libby or Overdrive. And it's also available for holds, so you can get a hard copy of it and pick it up at your local library during the times we are open. Thank you for sharing this time for me, and please stay tuned for more books we loved. It's been so great to get to share this time with you, and I hope to see you later. Thank you.